Welcome to Chad Hates Carbs. Today we're going to do a crustless Mexican quiche, and the reason I'm doing this today is because when I made my angel food cake I needed a lot of egg whites, so I have a lot of egg yolks, so I'm going to use them in this quiche. My wife recommended that when she does this, she normally uses 2 yolks, are the equivalent of 1 egg, so that's kind of what we're going to use. I have 10 eggs worth of yolks, so 10 yolks, so that's 5 eggs worth. And we need 8 eggs for this recipe. So I'm going to go ahead and crack an extra 3 eggs into this bowl. So I'm only going to have the whites of 3 eggs. So it's going to definitely taste a little bit eggier than a normal quiche would. But it really, at least to me, isn't too bad because I don't mind the taste of eggs. So that's 1. If I can get this to go. 2. And 3. 3 here. Alright. There we go. So there we've got 8 eggs. We need to get started on a pint of cottage cheese. The cottage cheese, the issue that you run into with this one is that a lot of times if you do not kind of cream it, it's going to end up giving you some kind of strange mouthfeel. But it's asking for a pint, which is the whole a whole 16-ounce container. And yes, I did have to look that up because I didn't know off the top of my head. But we're going to use the magic bullet here real quick, and we're just going to put this in here. And at the same time, let's go ahead and scoop that out. And then we also need to melt some butter, because this is all dairy all the time. So this goes in here. And my wife, you don't have to do this. This is just a step that I take because my wife really doesn't like the texture having these extra little clumps in there. And you know, if she's going to eat it, I figure I should let her enjoy it as much as she can. So. Get that started. Shake it up a little bit. Nice and creamy at the bottom now, so now we just kind of stir that in around. Okay, looking good. Alright, so we want to mix this in. We're going to just set that aside for a second. We need a half a cup of butter, or sorry, quarter cup of butter. Quarter cup, make sure I'm reading that right. Yep, quarter cup of butter. So we want to do that. And obviously, to make this mix well, we need to melt it. So I'm going to slap it in the microwave. We'll try maybe 30 seconds. And while we're looking at that, we can check what we're doing here. It does say put into a greased baking dish, so we're going to go ahead and use some spray here. And even when you grease it, it won't matter. It's going to stick like crazy. Oh, butter's getting happy. Alright. Some happy butter right there. Okay, so the This goes in eggs, cheeses, butter, and chilies. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and... kind of wondering why I don't just do it in there. Well, slap this in here. Get this all stirred in. This bowl's not going to be big enough. Not going to be big enough. We'll do the giant bowl. Yeah, that's the downside of the melted butter, is it starts to cook the eggs. This is all kinds of fun. Alright. There we go. Alright. Eggs, cheeses, butter, and chilies. So we got the eggs and the butter. So let's go ahead and start on the cheeses. Don't know what that was. So this would be the part of the cheeses. So we can go ahead and stick this in there. Put that in all in there. Why use a spoon when you can use a spatula? Yeah, this isn't the magic bullet. Didn't, that blade that I used, the flat blade, didn't work nearly as well as the other blade, and the other blade unfortunately is unavailable. So my wife will be happier with a different quiche. She would prefer it to be a little smoother. Definitely worked on the, you can see on the bottom it's not bad, but up in the, it didn't mix very well with the stuff at the top. That's the downside of just these small blades like that at the bottom, because it really is only it's gonna be best for things like making a vinaigrette or something. Alright, let's get this all mixed up. And then cheese. We need to get, it asks for a half a pound of jack and a half a pound of cheddar. So what we're going to do is we're going to do all the jack I've got and then do cheddar until we get to 1 full pound. So go ahead and get started on this. Not very much at all. And again, whenever you do this, as long as you tear it, tear your T-A-R-E, tear your scale, you can have whatever you want on top of it, and it doesn't matter because it doesn't count any of that other stuff towards the weight. So I teared it right after I put it in there, even with the whisk on it. So that's 2.8 ounces. Not very many ounces. So we got this giant block of cheddar. We go through a lot of cheese in this house. My kids love cheese. They make nachos probably, if not every day, every other day. So we go through a lot of cheese. And they prefer to grate their own cheese. They don't like the pre-made ones. Now my wife says, when I was talking to her about this quiche last night, she suggested that you go get there's like bags of mixed Mexican cheeses, and the reason that she likes that is because there's some versions of cheese in that mix that are very melty, and they're more like a kind of how the American cheese is super melty, and the melting properties of those cheeses make the quiche extra cool and whatever, plus you just open a bag and have some cheese, and those are all fantastic arguments. The downside to that is it means that you have to leave your house. So for those of us that prefer to not do that, we just use the cheese that's in the house. So we're at 10.8 ounces at this point. And we're kind of just mashing the end of the cheese into the The one advantage of being a bass player is you don't really have fingertips anymore. Okay, so that's 11.4 ounces. So we are going to have to open another bag of cheese. This is our backup supply of cheese. You can tell it's the backup because it's just small. It's not the main one, which our main one obviously would have to be much bigger than this. But the backup cheese will have to suffice for this. So we're looking for 16 ounces, which we should get to about halfway through this. As you can see, this is a lot of cheese, which is one of the main reasons why I really like this recipe. Okay, there we go. Alright, that is close enough. So now we're just going to try to mix this in a little bit. And the whisk is not going to work very well, so we're going to go back to our spatula. I'm going to kind of fold this in a little bit. We're going to need to turn on our tablet again. Alright, so we need to combine flour and baking powder, which it's looking for a teaspoon of baking powder and teaspoon of baking powder and half a cup of flour. So let's do half a cup of flour. I'm using almond flour here. It's kind of my go-to because it's fairly inexpensive. And then we need a teaspoon of baking powder. All we need to do now is get the chilies in there, get those all mixed in there. So we got a good little bit of extra flavor. You can do the last one that my wife made. She made with sausage. The one thing I will say about that is you definitely want to make sure that you cook it beforehand. Like in this case, I'm dumping out the water because otherwise you can end up with some really soupy results. Especially if you don't cook the meat first. It'll cook while it's in the recipe, yes, or while it's in the oven, yes, but the problem is that it doesn't actually, it gives off lots of fat and or water. And so when that happens, you end up with just really super weird textures. And it just, I don't know if you've ever had a bad breakfast casserole, but not good. So when you do that, you really want to try to cook the meat first. The flour will help absorb a little bit. Almond flour is not going to absorb like a regular flour will. So that's one of the things that this is the first time I've made this way. So we're going to see what happens. I'm going to hope that it's not super watery, but it's entirely possible that that's a thing. So we just stir that up, and then we dump it into our pan. Spread it out a little bit. Get it into the corners there. Try to get more of the stuff off of here. Slap in the middle. Alrighty. And it's saying that baked until golden brown and set 45 minutes. So let's put the timer at 45. Slap this bad boy in here. See where we're at in 45 minutes. Alright, we're at 45 minutes. That's looking pretty good. Got a little bit of browning on the top. It's set pretty good. It's a little bit jiggly, but not too bad. So we're just going to let that set for a second. Let it rest for just a moment. So we're nice and cooled down. And I'm going to cut myself a nice big hunk for dinner. Nice. Didn't stick very well at all. Didn't, well, I mean, that sounds bad. Didn't stick much, is what I'm trying to say. It's pretty good texture. As you can see, looks like a quiche. That's good stuff. I'm a big fan of this kind of stuff. It's really good. The green chilies add a lot of good flavor to it. The one thing that you can do, like I mentioned earlier on, the adding meat to it, definitely a good option. I like adding sausage to it, but this is the easiest way to do it. You just can of green chilies, throw it in there and call it good. Nice and fast, as you can see. But yeah, you can see it's not watery, it's not runny. So that almond flour did work pretty well at making sure that there wasn't too much soppiness to it. So yeah, it's a nice, quick, easy quiche, and a good way to use those extra egg yolks you have left around when you make a angel food cake. So, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.